Well, everything's looking really good up here, Mrs. W. I can see that the beetroots have all come through.
Yes, yeah.
Be time to thin those soon. The next lot of cauliflower and cabbage, they've now come through. Looking good. These cauliflowers that we sowed back in January, the Skipper and the Boris, they're now getting their first true leaves.
Brilliant.
So towards the end of next week, it'll be time to plant those out. So yeah, all is looking really good. Thank you all for your wonderful comments after our last video. So good to hear from you, and we really do appreciate them all. There's some interesting ones there and some good points made too. Like Trevor, on his comment, he said, compost has got so expensive now that it almost doesn't seem worth growing the potatoes in the tubs. I agree with you. Compost here in the UK anyway has got really quite expensive. But as you said at the end of your video, you can't beat the taste of your own homegrown potatoes. As I said in the video, the majority of our potatoes, they're grown out there in the plots. These that we've been doing, we're only doing those so that we can get an earlier harvest. And we've used our own compost for that, for those potatoes to grow in, compost that we made during the 2023 season. I also get it that sometimes you just don't have the compost to be able to make that. But hopefully in today's video we'll show you a way where you can make more compost more quickly to be able to use on all your no dig plots, and indeed have some to put in your tubs to raise nice early potatoes. Hello my girls, thanks for the eggs, very very lovely. We shall enjoy those over the weekend. Yes, one of these. Which one is yours, Rosie? Hello and welcome back to the No Dig Norfolk Gardener. Now there are many ways in which you can make compost. The majority of people generally tend to cold compost. Nothing wrong with that, nothing wrong with it whatsoever. But the downside to it is that it takes an awfully long time before you get usable compost. You keep making it and keep making it, and then you get to the time you want to use it and it's not quite there. So myself and Mrs. W, what we have done over the last nearly 3 years now, but certainly over the last couple of years, we've turned to hot composting. Now, hot composters, when you buy them commercially, can be quite expensive. We saw 1 or 2 YouTube videos. I think Niall was one we watched, wasn't it?
Yes.
He made his own hot composter. Well, we've made 1 or 2 tweaks to that. And in today's video, we want to show you exactly how we made our hot composter, and a little bit later in the video we'll go up to the top there and we'll show you the results of that compost. Well, the weather is turning on us a bit, Mrs. W, so it's as well that we're inside to make this hot composter bin. It also makes Poppy and Pepper very happy because they haven't got to go in the cold and we're in here with them. What you are going to need is some polystyrene insulating board. Here is what it looks like. And it's 1.2 meters tall and 45 centimeters in width. Now you can buy this from various places, but to be quite honest with you, Mrs. W went on the internet, particularly on social media, A lot of people these days are trying to really insulate their houses, especially if they've got old houses. And of course, inevitably, they have some that's left over. And more than willing to sell it to you at a cheaper price than you can buy it if you go to a builder's merchant. So they're also 5 centimetres in depth, which is 50 mils. And you're going to need 6 of them to be able to make this hot composter. Now you'll notice that ours have a foil backing on them. It's not absolutely necessary, but because we could, we did. And that just helps to insulate it that bit more. And also I'm guessing that it will help it last outdoors for longer. As I say, we've been dabbling with a hot composter for nearly 3 seasons now. The first season we were sort of trying to work out the ingredients and how we could get the best out of it, weren't we? Mm-hmm. Season 2 we sort of got there with that and we made some nice compost. And now our goal now is to make a second one so that we can double the output of compost that we can actually make. Now, as well as those materials, you're also going to need ratchet straps. These are 25 mil in width and have a ratchet on it so that when you wrap it around the hot composter, it helps strengthen it and you can get that strength by using the ratchet to pull it nice and tight. It also holds the hatch in at the bottom. You're going to need some adhesive to be able to stick the polystyrene together, and it's best if you don't have a solvent based one because that won't be very suitable for this. It will burn it and it won't stick as well. So a solvent free one is really a useful adhesive to use when making this. You'll also need a drill and a drill bit. We'll tell you what you'll do with that a bit later. And you can see that we're using our old kitchen table in here, but when you're cutting the polystyrene, obviously you need something so that you don't mark anything, whether it be your floor, whether it be your table, whatever. So this is an old cutting mat, which is many years old. When I first left school, I went to college and I actually went into the footwear trade and I was known as a pattern cutter. And this is one of the old boards that I used to have because I used to do some work from home freelance for certain people. So that's going to come in really handy so that we don't mark this table. Now you can use a Stanley knife to cut this, but equally so, an old bread knife is really good for cutting through the polystyrene. And this is an old one. It's not one that we actually use to cut bread with. You'll also need a skelly gun for the tube of adhesive, a tape measure for the measurements, and a straight edge. This is W straight edges, often involves pieces of wood. But of course, a rule would be good.
So we start off with our first piece laid flat onto the table, and it is 120 centimetres long, so we need to take a third off the bottom, and this will be the door when we open the composter up. So 40 centimetres. And the trusty straight edge.
I didn't mention that you'd need a good old Sharpie as well, did I?
Oh no, you didn't. Yeah, marker pen across. And then on the cutting board, just going to help keep it straight with the piece of wood. Just drag the knife through the polystyrene. So this will be the opening door at the bottom, and this is the top. So just put those to one side. Better not put them on the cat. Sorry, Pepper. We're going to use the glue gun, and we will be sticking the sides on top of the flat one, like so, either side. I'm going to put a good amount of this adhesive in a zigzag pattern, just to help it spread it out evenly, and that'll give a good adhesion, hopefully. That side, again on this side. So then just place the sides down, trying to keep them nice and level, even. Same on the other side. And then we won't be sticking the door piece on, because obviously you do need to get into it through the door, so that's a spare piece at the moment. So with the larger cut piece, we're just going to add that on the top, like that. So again, good amount of adhesive.
You know what they say about never working with children and animals? Poppy's decided she's thirsty now.
I thought for a moment you were going to say I'm an animal. There we go. So that's the first bit. So we now need to leave this for 24 hours so that the glue fully cures, and then we can come back to it to finish it. So now the next step is to make a top and a base, and they are both exactly the same. So you make two of these. The measurements are 45 centimetres by 55 centimetres on the first piece. So I already know that the width of my insulation is 45 centimetres, so I just need to measure the 55. And again, just slice through with the knife. That's the top piece there, and the bit that we're going to join to it needs to be 45 centimetres by 35, or just a tad under 35 to give it an easy fit. There's the smaller piece. What we're now going to do is we're going to glue this piece on top of that, leaving equal spacing all the way around. Onto the smaller piece, I'm going to just run a good line of glue all the way around the edge. just going to do zigzags across to good adhesion. And then you just need to centre this onto the larger piece. You need to make 2 of these, leave them to dry with the main carcass, and then we'll come back to them and show you the next step. So we're at the following morning and we have a nice sturdy carcass and a base and a lid, all nice and firmly glued together. With the top, I'm just going to draw a cross from corner to corner both ways. And I'm going to simply drill a hole through the centre, and this will be the hole where we put the temperature probe. There's the top with the hole drilled. I'll just place that into there. Nice and snug fit. I forgot to mention that I had put a piece of waste polystyrene underneath, so I'm not drilling into our dining table. And then with the base, this is a little bit more work to do because I've made a grid pattern of 10 centimetre intervals, and I'm going to drill at each interval with a relatively thick drill bit. And this will be for airflow and also to release any liquid that comes from the compost that we're going to catch underneath in a tin to make a compost tea. Just drilled the holes, and I've pushed the drill through a couple of times to clear out each hole so it's nice and free draining. So there's the base. So then all we need to do is to stand the main body part onto the base. You can see it forms a bit of a plug in there. That's your little doorway. And all we need to do now is to put some ratchet straps around. We're going to put on 5 straps around here. 3 equally spaced along the top bit here. And then there'll be another 2 around the door at the bottom.
Now that everything's cured and has really adheres together well, this can come and join its brother. And I say that loosely because we always call this the Beast, and Mrs. W thinks that these should be known as Beauty and the Beast.
I think they're quite apt names.
Now, one thing we didn't mention when we were down there is that you will need a temperature probe so that you can keep an eye on the temperature that's going on in there. For me personally, I normally have one inside, actually in the material, so I can see what heat that's getting to, and then one in the top, which sort of measures the ambient temperature overall of the composter. It's not absolutely necessary, it's just the way that I like to do things. Now from this, the Beast, overall, we actually filled one of our cold composting bays in a full year of composting. And the one thing we do want to try and do is to make as much compost as we can, so we have to buy as little amount in. So actually having the 2, that should give us 2 of those bays full, and we're not far away from actually being able to sustain ourselves with compost. The holes that you saw drilled at the bottom, that's to let the compost tea through, and we always keep a tray underneath, and you can see it's collected a fair bit of compost tea, even over this winter period. I think I last filled this, well, not filled up, I last added some material beginning of January, was it? Something like that, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Mid-Jan?
Yeah. And we've put another tray under the new one as well, haven't we now? So.
Yeah, and that's great stuff. It's concentrated, so you just add it to your watering can and it's great to feed your plants with. Now, using this method has absolutely revolutionised the way in which we can make our compost. Not just that, the speed that it makes the compost. Now, if I leave this material in here for up to 90 days, it produces a really quite a lovely compost. Personally, I don't do that. After 30 days, I take it out and then I add it to the cold composting bays. And every month I empty it, keep adding it, keeps building up, and of course it continues to break down in the cold composting bays. I don't need it until late October, November anyway, so it can continue doing its thing. And that's how we made our hot composting bins. Now, in the description I shall leave a list of all the materials and tools that you'll need to be able to make one yourself if you so wish to, and I'll also leave a couple of links to where we got some of those materials from. Do let us know in the comments section if you actually hot compost, whether you're thinking about it, and if you do already hot compost, how do you find it? Like us, have you found it's changed the way and the amount of compost that you can make in a single growing season? We always do like to get your comments. I noticed that one or two of you have been watching the video how we built the bean arch, and a lot of those views have come from new viewers, probably our newer subscribers. If you weren't following our channel last season, then you wouldn't have seen that video. I saw in the comments that Belinda had said about we hadn't actually said what length this blue piping was. For this tunnel that we made, it was actually 5 meters in length, and the width of the tunnel is 1.5 meters. If you want it taller, you can either make your pipe longer, or of course close the gap in the width. Do have a great gardening week, and we shall see you on the next one.